Right, good morning. How is everyone doing? Is anybody out there? So this morning is completely new to me. We are back on the computer. I'm just checking on my phone to make sure we are up and running. Perfect. So 5 people in the house. Say hello in the comments so I can actually see who's in and we can have a proper cup of tea together. I hope everyone's doing well. Don't worry, I didn't clean my room on purpose. It's always this clean. So, as the title of this morning's Cup with Tea live suggests, I'm going to take you on a bit of a mission to Morocco in quite a new way, for me anyway. So we're back at the computer. I have 4 different screens in front of me, and as you can see, I've got a little dude, little me, just here. So I'm actually using a new program called, well, it's not new, it's new to me. It's called OBS. I think that stands for Online Broadcast System. And after we've done a couple of the calendar shows last couple of weeks, I wanted to try and be able to share pictures with you as we move along, so we can all happen a bit quicker. You get to see the pictures as clear as I am, and hopefully the production value will slowly level up towards the quality of the poster, which is always the aim. So Gemma Glover's in. Hi Gemma. I've got my tea. Cheers everyone. So a mission to Morocco is essentially my journey in 2015, and it was a week-long project. But we start in 2006. So James Armstrong's in the house. Hello, mate. So we're just going to crack on, and we'll see if this works. I've only been playing with it yesterday for the first time, and hopefully I've set it up properly and things look good. So if I do this after 10 seconds, you will see, well, you'll see it live right now, but it's 10-second delay for me. But let me know when you can see the cover of this book, if you can see it at all. Right, looks like it is all working. So if I flick back to the main screen, I've got 3 different screens. We've got this one where I'm talking to you directly. We've got this one, which is pretty magic. And this will take you through the book from the trip. And then you've got this one, which is where we're going to begin in 2006 on my first trip to Morocco. So the reason I went there for the first time was to actually go kayaking. I was working for a international whitewater rafting company as a safety kayaker and a what they call a vidiot, someone that whizzes around with a video camera or a stills camera and just captures all the action. So it was all new to me. I was having a great time. And so one of the most epic pictures I've got, even from that trip, was very early on. We drove from Portsmouth all the way through to Marrakesh. And this is a picture of us pushing the car off the ferry and into Tangiers through customs and into the country. And the reason that happened is because the car was too heavy. As we drove on in Spain onto the ferry, there was a flap on the floor of the ferry that went straight into the petrol tank. Petrol tank leaked, but we managed to push the car right inside and then deal with everything when we got to Morocco. So all of this was very new to me, but that was my first mission into Morocco. So this is kind of where it starts. Let me just make sure I can see. Amazing. Making sure I can see everything. But yeah, if anyone has any trouble hearing me, just put something in the comments and I'll try and keep looking back to make sure it works. But everything is going to be going on above me right now. So 2006, this is how I made it into Morocco. And I was there for 5 or 6 weeks. So you drive from Marrakesh, once you arrive, you drive from Marrakesh up into the Atlas Mountains. You camp alongside the river with your guests and the rest of your team. You party with the locals. So these are local Berber families that you stay with along the river. The river is the Hansal River, and it can be a 3 or 4 day river trip. So along the way, we would have campsites that were fully loaded with cooking equipment and local families looking after them. And so we would hang out with the local families. On the right-hand side, you've got the team. So we were cooking the meal that night for the group that we were with. You've also got the people that I meet along the way that I make the pictures of. So on the left are 2 of the earliest portraits I can probably remember taking and thinking, wow, they're brilliant. So 2 ladies along the Hansal River. And on the right, that's the action. So pretty average whitewater photography, but the camera was very, very small and I didn't know much about it then. So that's it. So that was my 5 weeks, was filming kayaking, filming rafting, living alongside the people, living along the river, and basically learning about Morocco. That was my introduction to an amazing country. And so when it came to me doing my degree back in Plymouth in 2015, I went along to a guy's talk at Plymouth University. He was called John Beattie. And I cannot even remember, but he showed one picture that involved Morocco. And it was at a point in my degree where I was really conflicted about what I was doing. I wasn't enjoying the direction I was going in. And about 8 o'clock at night, I just said in my brain, I'm going to Morocco. I'm going to leave 3 months worth of project in the bin and I'm going to go to Morocco. At midnight that night, I'd contacted a friend and said, right, I owe you some money. I'm going to buy you a ticket to Morocco. Come with me and assist me on this project. So within 3-4 hours of listening to this guy, I ended up booking 2 tickets to Morocco. Over the next 4 days, I booked, for the first time ever, I booked accommodation, transport, made sure tickets would arrive in the right place, and got everything sorted to get out and go on this trip. The trip would be 5 days long, and it was only a week after this talk that I was ready to take off to Morocco. And the fun side of it is it's the first time I'd ever used Instagram. So Andrew Finley was my assistant and friend that came with me, and he was a bit younger, and he's pretty up on the at that point Instagram hashtags, all the stuff you need to put yourself out online. So this trip was really the start of me considering how I share my work, and it was brilliant to have him there because it was a real steep learning curve for documenting everything. And so rewind just slightly, in that week in between the talk and leaving, I had to let my tutors know that I was going. That was very easy. They were a bit shocked, but nothing was going to stop me. I had to have a commercial edge to what I was doing on this trip. So essentially I wrote my own brief, and it was a travel documentary assignment for, of course, National Geographic, and it would be to go to Essaouira and on the coast about 3 hours outside of Marrakesh and photograph stories, people, the fishing industry. Living in Plymouth, I know there's a port and a dock and a somewhat thriving fishing industry. So I knew that by Googling these pictures of Essaouira, I could go there and I knew there would be a story. And I had that confidence. And Morag's lost sound. Has anybody else lost sound? Before I go too far. It might just flick in and out, I'm not sure. Like I said, you're 10 seconds behind me. So if anybody else loses sound, just let me know and I will do my best to figure it out. So where was I at? All good that side? That's perfect. So I had to write myself a commercial brief. That was fine. Um, it wasn't really too serious. I just knew by having the confidence of having been to Morocco before that I was completely in my comfort zone to just fly out there and figure it out. Whatever happened while I was out there, I would just roll with it along the way. So I think it was about 7 o'clock at night. We did a bit of filming in my old house, telling everyone what I was up to. That video is somewhere. And it was, again, my first introduction to talking to a camera about what I love to do. And when you're somewhat confident about the work you do, but you're not quite confident about the trip, about things working out, it's not like you can say, oh, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and that's going to happen. You're somewhat blagging it, you're winging it, but your inner confidence is like, yeah, I've got this. But trying to put that across to a camera was bloody difficult. So that was the last hour before we left, and I ended up walking out of the house with a pair of fake Converse shoes on from Sports Direct, and I didn't realise until I was on the plane early the next morning that I was in these shoes, and I was like, shit, I've got 5 days in the most uncomfortable shoes for walking anywhere. But made it happen, and you just got to roll with it. And so that picture on the left is me sitting at the airport, having a drink of juice and booting up the computer to load some stuff onto Instagram. And on the right, that's when we first arrived. You jump into a taxi and the trip begins. You're now integrating into the culture, the people, the life of Morocco, and heading towards the middle of Marrakesh. So you get in there, you put your bags down, and within 5 minutes you're out the door. And within 5.5 minutes, someone's spotted you and gone, you're fresh. And what they do, this guy here, no idea of his name, but he just took us straight away. He was like, hey guys, come with me, let's go. And again, this is part of being a travel photographer. It's, following your nose and understanding that you are safe until you're not safe. And so I didn't really trust this guy one bit, but we followed him, and these guys know where to go. They know where tourists want to go, and they know what they want to see, and they know how to get potentially some money out of people for either a tour, a tip, or a product at the end of it. So this guy was taking us to the infamous or famous tanneries where they tan the camel skins, the camel leather. So this guy on the left, he's got a wheelbarrow full of the dried skins, and the guy on the right is our tour guide. And he's pointing to a load of camel skins up on top of the building. On the right are the tanneries, and they absolutely stink. Talking of, so we walked around for 15, 20 minutes, and then it got to the point of tension where you're like, yeah, he's going to want something here. Takes us to his mate's shop. And because it was Andy's first time in Morocco, I wasn't going to ruin that moment for him because it's a great lesson. I've had it many times. And so he ends up buying like the smelliest, most weirdest camel beanbag footstool futon type thing. And I think he bought 2 of them. He's like, oh yeah, these would be great. And obviously when you're in Morocco in that shop, they don't smell. But when you get them back to your room, they absolutely stink. And I said, great, you've got to carry these around for the next week. He said, don't worry about that. So yeah, that was his introduction. The greatest thing about the guy that led us on this goose chase around the tour was that I could ask him in return for Andy buying those things, can you get us on top of that gas truck? And that's how I made the portrait of the gas man. And that's all on the first evening. There's push bikes everywhere, there's texture everywhere, and so you take your wide shot to get the whole bike in, and then you get a bit artistic. You think, oh, one day somebody might want to buy that picture, or you might want to just stick it on your wall. So you go in a bit closer. We all know it's a bike. You don't have to show the whole bike. So pictures are everywhere. So I was on full alert. I was like, I've got to get as many pictures as I can of all of this stuff. So just in case that story doesn't work out, this story might work out. And I think on the right side, I think it's called Jamal El Fina Square, which is the main square of Marrakesh. Right in the middle distance is the mosque, and it's the most amazing sunset. It's a busy place, full of tourists, full of food stalls, and it's just a real buzz. And just off the square is the souk, which is the huge market. And in 2006 trip, I walked in one end, got lost, walked out the other end, and I was about 3 miles away from where I should have been. So it was great to be back there and sort of remember all of those things. Just walking through at night, you take pictures of all the little sweet stalls. And so there's this gentleman here on the left. Didn't catch his name. But again, I was using an on-camera flash for that one, just bouncing off the ceiling. But bought a few of his treats afterwards, and I think he smiled at that point. And on the right-hand side, this is a great story because I've just seen Mehdi is in the comments on the left-hand side. But literally the night before leaving for this trip, I don't even know how I came across Mehdi, but on Instagram or Facebook, I saw him, I wrote to him and I said, do you live in Marrakesh? And he's like, yeah, I live in Marrakesh. And within about 10 minutes, we'd arranged to meet the next evening for dinner. And that's us on that evening. So the first day I arrived in Marrakesh, we went out. Andy had been shopping, we'd been around the tannery, we'd walked through the square, we'd taken a portrait of this guy here, and we'd had some dinner with Mehdi. So the internet is a wonderful thing. So I'm glad Mehdi's tuned in. I don't know if he's still here, but he was the rock of this trip. And although he didn't follow us and come with us everywhere, it was like when you're leaving home, you're arriving to somebody that you know. And although I didn't know him, we'd spoke, and there was a connection that I had in Marrakesh. So it was amazing to meet him that night, hear his stories, and get him to give us a bit of a tour. So that was absolutely phenomenal. And so was the hair. After being in Marrakesh for about another day, I'd already arranged for our bus tickets. So when I was in the UK, I bought bus tickets. Those bus tickets were delivered to our accommodation. So they arrived, which was a massive surprise. And so we took the 3.5-hour bus ride to Essaouira on the coast. Halfway along, you stop. You see the goats in the trees. And the only picture I have of that is really blurry, so that was taken from the bus window. But I was standing out on the side of the street, and there was loads of people going up and down the street, and I was trying to practice with my slow shutter speeds, but capturing movement. So all these bikes were going across. I'd slowed my shutter speed down to like the 30th of a second, got the right exposure, and I was just panning to capture these guys on the bikes. And this one guy reaches over and goes, "No, no, no." And it's at that point you get a tiny bit self-conscious and go, all right, maybe I shouldn't do this. But he was the only one, and he disappeared. So I carried on and got some more shots. And like I say, the whole trip was based about going to Essaouira and capturing all the stories at this fishing port. And on the right hand side are all the fishing hooks. So we arrive, again, you get into your accommodation, and Essaouira is kind of in a bit of a walled town, and all of the streets are really tiny. So it took us probably 40 minutes to find actually where we were supposed to stay. Then you just have your camera on your shoulder and out you go, and you're looking for stuff, you're looking for pictures, for stories, for connections. So these fishing hooks, they were everywhere, and people would be tying them up, and they'd be attached onto a huge long line that strips out behind the boats to catch as many fish as they could. Once the trawlers had come in each morning, all of these baskets would be filled with fish. And just even just the baskets on their own are amazing, but they're filled with ice, filled with fish. And I think we talked about this picture last week in the calendar, but I managed to hang around a bit, and this young boy puts 2 crates down and stands up on top of the stack and just fills a bag full of fish. The fishermen's in the background, got amazing blues, amazing reds, yellows, just colours popping from everywhere, matching with his red trousers. And it was just an amazing shot. And as soon as I took it, I knew it was I don't think I was going to get a better shot that trip to sum everything up. So it was a real cover shot. And so from there, we're walking around, and I'm not going to describe Essaouira too much to you, but it's a fishing port. There's noise, there's seagulls, there's fish heads. It smells it's a bit rickety. They've got a huge fishing market. So this walkway that you can see on the right-hand side next to the boats is usually, well, come the afternoon, evening time, that's a huge fishing market. So people can walk up and down and buy fish and anything else that's come out of the sea that day. So I was standing up on the wall, the ocean off to one side, and then looking back into the port. And I had the long lens on. I had the 70-200, and I was taking some great shots. And then I took the picture on the left-hand side, and it was from my position quite far back. And I zoomed all the way in, and I just thought, I'm not connected to that image in any way. Yeah, it looks great. There's shapes. But I knew to make this project work, I had to connect with the people, and that meant getting closer. So I put the 70-200 away. I felt like a bit of a poacher, just stealing the images. So that lens went away for pretty much the whole trip. To be honest, it wasn't a good feeling to be shooting from that far away, especially at people. And I like to be able to talk about the people in my images, whether I actually know them or not, but I actually like to be as close as I can get. So on the right-hand side, I'd moved in closer, pointed at my camera to the guys on the boat, and he was like, yeah, crack on. And so they were bringing in the nets, pulling the nets onto the boat, and they were ready to head off to take their catch that they'd got back over to the other side before they went out again for their night fishing later on. So this is a great shot with the leading line of the rope going back into the boat. So again, it just shows that I've got that a little bit closer, and just the impact is so much greater in that one image. Between taking that shot and these shots, a guy called Abdul had invited us onto the boat. So literally the boat is pulling away from the dock, and we don't know if it's going out to sea or if wherever it's going, but we jumped 2 feet out and 3 feet down onto the nets of this boat. And so it ended up on this Moroccan fishing boat. Literally on the first day that we were in Essaouira, we've ended up on a Moroccan fishing boat. And remember, none of this is planned. All of this is knowing that there's pictures in this area to get, and that's from a Google search, and knowing that we were confident enough to do it. So we jumped onto this boat, and we were looking at each other going, where's this going? What are we doing? And I was just like, just film. Just get the GoPro and just film. So there is a small video of that moment out there, which I'll put up on Facebook later. But so Andy was just filming, and I was just like, film me taking pictures. And I moved around the boat, and I was making all sorts of pictures. And again, some guys, they come up from underneath the boat and were like, where have you come from? What are you doing? Stop taking pictures of me. But a lot of the guys were happy for us to make pictures. They were really enjoying it. And so on the right-hand side, you've got Jamal. And Jamal was wearing jelly shoes. That's one thing I completely remember, is Jamal was wearing jelly shoes. with socks, and the socks were soaking wet, covered in fish scales and goo, and I was just like, ugh, but fantastic. So Jamal and his mate were standing in the top of the locker, and if you can see clearly enough, you can see down inside the belly of the boat, and that's where all the fish are stocked up in the boxes. So again, another great shot with Jamal, and that was my first proper portrait of the trip, so I knew I had one. And when you've got a person and a name, and you can just build that story around that person or around the people on the boat. So we've got plenty of pictures of the place, we've got plenty of pictures of the fish and the things and the hooks, but who are the guys that are going out to actually to get those fish from the sea? Who are the main men? So Jamal was one of those guys. And I didn't get the name of the lad that was down inside the boat. So Jamal had moved out. They'd moved all the fish. So on the right-hand side, you can see Jamal passing the fish to Abdul. And then Abdul will pass them on again. But that was the lad that was picking all of the fish out of the boat. So once the fish leave the boat, they head onto the dock, and then they load them into this lorry. And I'm not sure why, but the guys weren't too happy that I was taking pictures of that. But I'd luckily managed to get a couple of pictures before before they even knew I was there. So they were happy with. I stopped after they said no, but I'd already got some pictures, and it doesn't really show anyone doing anything wrong, but they might have thought they were doing something wrong. And so once the fish are in that truck, they go off to market or wherever they're going to go. But all the small stalls, you have the ability to buy those fish, and then within 10 seconds walk over to one of the local barbecues and pay somebody to barbecue that fish, and they can cook it and you can eat it right there and then. So Abdul was that guy, and he said, I don't know how many dirhams, but in the local currency about 2 or 3 quid. He said, give us the money, I'll organise the fish, I'll find the barbecue, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, I'm willing to take a bet. I'm willing to trust you this far with a small bit of money. And he obviously was going to go and buy some cigarettes for his effort. But this picture on the right is him taking off. We don't really know where he was going, but he got his idea and off he went. So we followed him. And so I was slowing the shutter speed down because I wanted to create movement. And I was trying to balance movement with a bit of sharpness, with a bit of blur, to make it all seem like it was working and that we were on a bit of a mission. So that's him whizzing around the corner. And then that's me following down the straight alleyway. And that's pretty typical of an Essaouira alleyway. On the right is the big wall, but usually there'll be 2 houses sort of facing each other. And then on the right side, you've got the fish, and that's where they end up, and then they end up in your belly. And they certainly look better after a barbecue. Well, they look much better after the barbecue than they do before. And not being a big fish eater, I was quite happy with those. Bit of charcoal fish. So that was the couple of days, we were working with, the first day we met Abdul, and you've just seen that first day. That evening he said, why don't you come fishing with us? And we're kind of looking at each other going, yeah, that could be fun, but we might die. And we didn't know if we trusted him enough. And so he said, right, meet me at this bar at 8 o'clock. So over we went. We sat there for 4 hours and got absolutely smashed with this guy. He was buying some drinks, we were buying some drinks. I was checking my pocket to make sure my phone wasn't missing. And suddenly he was like, right, you need to give me however much money because we're going to buy some, I don't know if it's, you need to buy wine or something to give to the captain of the boat before he lets you get on the fishing boat. So we were up for this. We were ready. We were going to risk whatever it was to go and do this. But I wasn't going to give him money to buy the wine. So I said, you bring the wine and we meet you at the boat and then we will go on this trip. So this was all a bit surreal. I was a little bit drunk and certainly Abdul was. And I said to Andy, I was like, how the hell is he going to go and do 10 hours of fishing in the, he's steaming. How is he going to do 10 hours of fishing? And so we sort of looked at each other, thought up this sort of plan. And as we walked out, Abdul went one way. And we said, right, we'll meet you at the boat in 20 minutes. And we went the other way. And we just kept on going. It was surreal to be escaping from somebody that was quite harmless. We had quite a lot of fun drinking with him. But there was something that happened where you didn't trust him. So common sense, we legged it. And yeah, we never saw him again. But a funny little travel story, that one. A nice Essaouira sunset. And waking up the next morning, I wanted to get out super early. Remember, we only had 5 days. We're probably on day 3 was the Abdul where we ran away from him. So day 4, we wanted to get up really early, and we went out and we met Mohammed, and he was the only guy on the fishing port. He was the only fella there, and he was just tinkering away, mending his nets, all on his own. And the sun was just coming up off the left-hand side of the picture. And I went in and just started speaking to him. Again, no common language, but pointing at the camera, and he was smiling. He was like, yeah, take some pictures, no problem. Making the pictures, I was conscious that the sun was so bright on the left-hand side, that everything else on the right-hand side was dark. So this was one of the first times I used a speed light, an external speed light for travel portraits, and I had a trigger on top of the camera, and my light stand was Andy. So Andy was off to the right hand side of that image, holding up the speed light, and I was just tap snapping away, trying to get the best images that I could. It was a really dynamic shapes of the fishing net, so I held up that bit at the front on the left and created the lines that go left, right, and zigzag all the way to the point that I want you to look. So that was, as soon as I got that portrait, I was, made up for the whole trip. So we'd gone through, we'd met Mehdi, we'd gone to Essaouira, we'd achieved getting onto a fishing boat, we'd made a load of portraits on the boat, we'd taken the pictures of them moving the fish around, we'd got a good story, nice picture of a sunset. And then we've got this, we've got Mohammed fixing the fishing nets, and a great portrait there. I wouldn't usually, like the picture on the left here, I wouldn't usually turn something black and white and put a crazy filter around the edge of it. But when I was looking for this slideshow, I just sort of found that I found that I'd already done it, so I picked that out this morning and put that into the slideshow. And it looks quite good, actually. On the right, on the second picture in is, I've blurred the picture. It's not blurry on purpose, or it is blurry on purpose, but I've done that afterwards just to protect all his details. But took a picture of Mohammed's driving license. It had his address on, so I could post the image back to him. And so when I posted the image back to him, his daughter 6 months later got in touch with me on Facebook and said, thank you very much for the pictures. And I was able to send her digital copies of those shots. So always worth doing if you want to remember somebody's name or send them a picture, is just take a picture of their national ID or their driving license, and hopefully they'll trust you with that. And again, a great link through Mehdi was an American girl that put us in touch with Khadija. And Khadija does cookery classes, traditional Moroccan cookery classes. So we got invited to come along, and it was a private meal, and she cooked for us, and we were able to make some pictures for her. And so it was an amazing afternoon with the family. And it's one of the natural light portraits I took of her on the right hand side. So I don't know if she'll watch through this video, but she is actually on Facebook, and she's an incredible woman and an amazing chef. So we had a great meal. So again, this is day 4. That evening we walked around the markets, and I'd met a guy. This is skipping a bit here, but I met this guy on the left, and I'm pretty sure he's called Hassan. Hassan the man. Let me just check my book. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's called Hassan. But I'd met him at lunchtime, and he said, "Oh, come in for a cup of tea." So I went in for a cup of tea, took a couple of portraits. I wasn't happy with them, and I said, "Oh, can we meet up again later?" And he said, "Yes, come for dinner." So we went for dinner. Andy was there. We're having a great chat. He was trying to sell us stuff, and we were trying to make a trade for photos. He was trying to put the price right up on one of the jalabas, which is the traditional schmuck that he's got on, and I wasn't going to pay the price he wanted, so we had to balance it out. But we came to a great agreement, and we managed to have like 15 minutes of a portrait session at the end of the time. So these are the last 2 pictures of the trip, and they're a portrait of Hassan. They're shot through his interior window, holding up a speed light, and it was diffused to make it softer through the foam of Andy's baseball cap. And all that's happened with the lighting here is I've shot camera angle straight on, light from the side, and then the light and the camera have swapped. So in that picture where he's looking off to one side, the light is now coming through the window, and I'm shooting from the side. And that's my favourite one. On our last evening in Marrakesh, that's Andy and Mehdi just chilling out on top of the restaurant, looking over the big square, and we were just reflecting on 4.5 days of just complete chaos. Really, it was well planned, but we managed to get to all of these places and meet all of these different people, creating all of the pictures we had, the stories we had. We nearly went off on a bloody fishing boat into the middle of the sea with a bunch of guys we don't even know, probably no life jackets, and a skin full of beer inside us. We'd been to a local house and had traditional cooking lesson and ate the food. I'd met Hassan. We'd been invited into his house. And so from being back at uni and doing 3 months of a project I really just didn't like, to getting one piece of inspiration from one guy that said to my heart, bugger off to Morocco and make it happen. Everything was booked, and within 2 weeks I'd been there, I'd done that trip, and come back and spent the next 10 days putting the project together. I don't know if there's another picture. There's the square in the evening. And putting that project together so I could complete an assignment just for my degree. And that's when I started to really realise that that's exactly what I wanted to do in some way, whether it was to take people with me on these trips, to do commissions or work for a company to make pictures like that and document in that way, or just purely for my own passion, really. And so I created a book of this trip, and I've got a printed book back at my parents' house, but I've also got the ebook. I don't like calling it an ebook really, but it's a digital book. And so that digital book, if you want a copy, just send me a private message through Facebook, and I can email it to you. But it goes through everything that's in this book. If you can't see me, by the way, I'm right at the bottom in the middle. So I've got this, I'll flick back to here. I've got this journal from the trip. This journal has got all of the stories and all of the adventures in it. And that has all been translated into this book. So this book is Morocco by Tommy Helter and Andrew Finley. Slight introduction, loads of chat, and it's got the images, and some images that you haven't seen just now, other ones that are just linked with Beautiful colours and lots of cats. The day we went to the boatyard and saw them creating and making boats. Then we get onto the boat. The guys with the fishing nets. There's Jamal and his team taking the fish off the boat. The fish going onto the port, and then on the right side you've got the fish actually in the market, and there's a nice long shot there of the actual marketplace. And I was a little bit wary of having the camera out in the marketplace, but that was on me. That's my own thoughts going through my head. Or what if they don't want it out? What if they don't like the camera? But honestly, if you just get the camera out and just be polite and make sure you connect with people, then you'll get the pictures you want. And if people don't like it, you just move on. Left hand side is the guy cooking up our fish. Then you've got Mohammed and his fishing nets. You've got this chap here. I think his name must be in there. He was called Mohammed as well. So Mohammed on the right hand side had a herb shop, and he was making all sorts of herbal tea. They're the ingredients that went into it. We've got the rug man. And in the market, I think I spoke last week about all of the stuff that you can buy in the market. So if you've got a Nokia 3210, you can go and buy some new keypads for it. You've got Khadija with her flower, and then some more images of her and her family. Back into the market, Jamal and Fina Square, and then we finish off with Hassan right at the end. And that was the book that I put together for my for one of my projects, and I was super chuffed that it came back perfectly, really. And it just gave me that little bit of confidence that, you know, if you have an idea and you just act on it and you just keep acting on it and keep following it, some of them have to happen very quickly and other ones take a long time. So I'm constantly in my long-term journey, but instantly I can react and move to short-term ideas, quick fixes. And that's where this week, this book has been bloody brilliant. TK Maxx, nice Italian leather, cost about £3. But this book is now my ideas book. So each page, each double page, has got a new idea inside it. And if I have the idea, I just bung it in there, leave it in there, and then at some point, if I'm stuck for things to do, which I should never be, I just go back in and try and expand on some of those things. It just gets out of my brain into this book, and it means it's going to happen at some point, whether it's now, next week, next year, or whenever. So that's pretty much this morning, and I'm pretty chuffed in how this is worked, really, this setup. Not only can you see my cheeky little face here, but here as well. It allows me to show you through all of these pictures and all of these stories, which opens up a much, much wider amount of things that I can share with you during these Wednesday mornings, or put on extra things during the during this time when we're in lockdown and beyond that. You know, it allows me to sit here and talk to you and flick between this screen, that screen. You can see all of the different things I want you to see, really. So for me, it's brilliant. I hope it's looked somewhat good from your side, and the pictures are coming across clear and the audio's clear enough. But I hope everyone's enjoying their tea as well. So if anyone's got any questions about that trip or anything to do with anything, just put it down. Let's have a little bit of a conversation, because that's me done for that chat. And I kind of went in that direction today, because on the previous lives, when I first started, I was just leaving it open to questions, which meant I wasn't, not that I was worried about what was going to come in, but for people watching, it doesn't really hold people's attention. Doing the calendars was a way to focus these talks in, and now in future doing it this way, I'm able to focus in even further on specific topics, trips, adventures, stories, potentially a bit more to do with how I made that shot, screen grabs, education. I tried sharing Lightroom through here, but it's not. It only shows the middle screen. I can't get it to show everything on the outside. So, oh great, Chris Harvey, it's been excellent. So that's good, which means it works, and that is not bad for the first time. This is when you're watching yourself on Instagram Live, just to make sure it's still working. And right now it's not crashed out either. So I hope everyone is doing well. If you have got any questions or you want to see any of those pictures again, let's hang out for a bit more and see what's going on. Has anyone been to Morocco? Have you been to Marrakesh? Here's a question from Mr. Cooney. How do you find travelling with an assistant? Was it as easy to meet people, or would you say it got in the way? Well, I don't want to be cruel to Andy, but he always gets in the way. But sometimes that's a good thing, because he's got a camera in his hand. But yeah, this was the first time I'd done a trip with somebody else in a photography direction. And I really couldn't have done the trip without him for many reasons. Big part of it was confidence. You know, he was able to, he thinks from a completely different direction. So he was able to discuss questions with me. He was able to ask me questions about what I was doing, why was I thinking that way, you know, that we're doing well, we're doing the right thing. He was obviously updating all of the Instagram stuff, which took a big chunk of the pressure off me because I didn't understand any of it at that point. And that's only 5 years ago. And there was points where I wanted him to have his completely own experience. So I just said, just bugger off, go and do your thing. I want to go and do my thing. And that's actually where I met Hassan, was when I was on my own. And I think it's sometimes easier for locals to come up to individual people rather than a couple of people, because I feel like you don't want to interrupt if there's a couple of people there. But if there's some guy just walking along on his own with a camera, you know, it was a lot easier for him to interact. So then I was able to say, oh, I've got this friend Andy, he wants to come around. Yeah, come on around. And so the trust is already there. So yeah, but I do most of my travels on my own, not because I necessarily want to. It's just when you want to go, you just go. And if somebody's there that's ready to go with you, then great. But a lot of the times you just have to get cracking and do it by yourself. But he was great to have there, a massive confidence boost, and again, somebody to just roll along with, chat with, because sometimes travel can get a bit lonely. And even if you're just there for 5 days, you do feel a little bit safer having somebody else with you. So great question, John. How are you, my friend? Hey, we're 49 minutes in and it's not crashed yet. So this is good news. Let's have a quick look back up. James Armstrong, love your ability to connect with people. Thanks, mate. You just get on and reach out, and that's it. You just step out of your little zone, because everything that's going on in your head is probably telling you the worst case scenario. And in the front of this book, nobody external can change who you are or what you have experienced. Only you can make that change. So it just shows that you can step out of your comfort zone and change whatever you want. So it's your perception of something that's holding you back. So if I was too nervous doing these lives, which I was for many years, I've only started doing them since really it was lockdown. And each time you improve. So the first one's a bit ropey, second, third, fourth, they're getting better, and then you start implementing new technology. So you feel like you step back a little bit, but you step back a little bit to go flying forwards because you're just adding more variables for problems. But it seems to have gone well so far. I'm really chuffed with how it's working, and it just opens up a completely new way to connect with everyone. Any more questions, or have people's teas gone cold? Chris Harvey, you wrote, "I like the way you improvise." That's what it is. That's all I try and do is improvise everything every day. Especially when you're traveling. If you need a reflector, take a car door off. But I'll give it another couple of minutes just to see if anyone wants to ask a question. Morag, if you're still in there, have you got a question? Who else is in? Gemma Glover, you must have a question in there somewhere. I don't know if Medi's still in. Let's have a look on here. You must have a question in there somewhere. I don't know if Medi's still in. Right, Chris. Chris is out the door. Right, Chris, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Hope you enjoyed your cup of tea, or a cuppa with tea. And like I said, production value is slowly going up, and it might match the poster soon. Morag, just find your talk's inspiration on food for thought. Well, thank you very much. And that's what we try and do, or that's what I try and do. You can get so much just from listening to people, whether you think you enjoy their photography or not. They might just say one thing that inspires you to go on a week trip to, or a 5-day trip to Morocco in search of something that you're not even quite sure is there. So just get out there with the camera and just see what happens. Thanks, Sharky. And if that's everything from everyone, thank you very much. Look after yourselves and watch this space. But I'll see you this time next Wednesday for another mission somewhere. Peace.